Hello, everyone, and welcome to IT Guide for Accounting Firms, Security, Compliance, and Outsourcing. This webcast is brought to you by CPA Practice Advisor and Cetrom. I'm Gail Perry, Editor-in-Chief of CPA Practice Advisor, and I'll be your moderator today. Before we get started, I would like to explain briefly how CPE works for this webcast. The webcast qualifies for 1 credit of continuing professional education. If you plan to earn CPE for attending this session, you must stay with us for at least 50 minutes. In addition, we will display 4 polling questions during the webcast. You will need to record an answer for at least 3 of the questions, as this is our verification that you are still watching. Later today, you'll receive an email from CPA Practice Advisor that contains a link to your CPE certificate, assuming you met the requirements for CPE. Please note that we can give CPE credit for multiple people watching on the same computer. So if there are others in your office who would like to attend this event on the same computer, please have them join you now. And at the end of the event, we'll provide an opportunity for you to send us their email addresses so they too can receive CPE credit. At any time, you can enter any questions you might have in the Ask a Question box that appears on your screen. Our speaker will try to get to as many questions as possible during the presentation. Questions not answered during this live webinar will be addressed by the speaker afterwards via email. The slides for this event are available on your screen for download. There's an Event Resources button. You can click that, and from there you'll see the option to download the slides if you would like to have them. Today we're joined by Chris Stark, President and CEO of Cetrom, and now we are ready to begin.
Thank you, Gail, and thank you everybody for your time today, especially during the middle of the season, shall we say, between the September-October months. So, my goal today really is to put out as much information to help you and your firm take home today to even apply as soon as this fall, winter months. So there are a lot of things that are going on in the industry, a lot of headwinds. And we are in the trenches with you. We're a technical team, been serving the accounting industry now for 23 years, hosting applications for clients. And we see the day-to-day operations and also the forward-thinking thoughts. So on that note, let me jump into the fun. And I just want to make sure that that slide did change for you all. So we've been around since 2001. We're a private company based out of the Washington, D.C. area, and we specialize in hosting accounting applications for accounting firms across the United States. We're also a managed security solution provider based in D.C. area with data centers in multiple regions of the United States, for example, in Virginia and Colorado. And by far, the most important thing we do these days, aside from keeping your apps updated and working and operational, keep you working, is the security side of the house. There are a lot of things that have been happening over the last 5-10 years. I don't need to tell you that, but there are also a lot of new regulations we're going to talk about today and expanding on that, what to do. We are award-winning. We're very proud of our reputation in the market. We only bring on so many clients per year, and that's a planned approach. But one thing we're very proud is our reputation of growing for the last 23 years. We've been nominated and won a 5-star award by CPA Practice Advisory now 5 years in a row, and A2 is awarded this top hosting provider 9 years in a row. And I'm a big culture guy. I come from the school of you take care of your team, you take excellent care of them, and they're going to take amazing care of our clients. Hence the Workspace Excellent Award on the bottom right-hand side. We know these applications, and we also know the industry. We understand both on the high-level side of the 10,000-foot perspective accounting industry is where it's going, and some of the headwinds are ahead of us, but then we also get in the trenches on working on these applications. We know the good and the bad and the finicky, and keeping these applications healthy and happy and integrated with your other applications, so your firm can focus on what they're doing best, which is taking care of your customers. So we have a lot of real-world knowledge on these applications. We are very heavy in engineering-wise on our end, so we have a lot of deep knowledge, and just to mention a couple of the applications. So what do? We are a full-service IT solution provider, cloud provider, designed and focused 100% on accounting firms and their unique needs and unique applications. We are a little different in that we really stack up and put our senior engineers up at the frontline support. We've also complemented our services with security, and we've now an EDR and MDR services for our customers. We do all the schedule updates, doesn't matter who it's for, whether it's Microsoft or CCH or Thomson or Intuit products. We're constantly updating, upgrading, migrating, moving, adjusting, fixing, you name it, for our clients. End-to-end network monitoring and troubleshooting and making sure that we're ahead of problems, not reacting to problems. We provide educational services for our clients and their employees, and we also get into strategy. We even help clients do acquisition and rolling in other firms into their organization. So we really touch the full spectrum of IT, whether it's a high level or security or end-to-end user support for our customers, around the clock, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Today, we're really going to focus on how firms are being targeted by cyber threats, why they're being targeted, and I think a lot of us know the answer already, how to manage your security, data security, and minimize your risk, because it's all about knowing where your risk is, compliance and security guidance for managing remote and offshore staff. This has added another problem and also trying to maintain compliance. And questions you should be asking your IT provider. Sometimes not knowing the question you should be asking your potential provider is 50% of the problem. And so we really want to help guide you on qualifying, and so you're moving forward successfully. We do have a team here at Cetrom that are monitoring the line here. So please, by all means, ask in a way in the chat, and we have a team of people to try to get back to you as soon as possible. If you want to take your question offline, we'd be more than happy to discuss. And we're also going to ask some poll questions. I'm going to turn it over to Gail here for the question, and then we'll go over the responses. Gail?
Okay, this is our first polling question today. Remember, you'll need to answer at least 3 questions in order to qualify for CPE credit. This question is, how would you rate your IT experience this past tax season? And the options are great, good, fair, poor, other. And by great, we mean we wouldn't change a thing. Good, we have things running pretty smoothly. Fair, there's some room for improvement. Poor, we had a lot of issues this past tax season. Or other, I'd rather not say. And if you have any trouble answering the question online, if your device won't let you answer it for some reason, go ahead and post your answer in the Ask a Question box, and we'll pick it up there. But choose your answer, click the Submit button, and we'll go ahead and take a look at these answers coming in. I also want to remind you that the slides for this event are available in the Event Resources option on your screen. And boy, if you click that, you're going to see that Cetrom has actually provided you with a whole slew of resources that you can download. So at some point during this event, you'll want to take a look at that and download the things that are interesting to you. And looking at the results coming in, it looks like about half the audience is saying good, is choosing good. We have things running pretty smoothly. And there's another big chunk, more than a third, saying fair. There's definitely some room for improvement.
Well, half the problem is knowing you have a problem, as they say. Thank you, everyone, for contributing and participating in the questionnaire as I move along here. So why are CPA firms or accounting firms being targeted? And I think a lot of us understand this, but let's just remind ourselves of who we are and the kind of data that we're storing. Well, unfortunately, I have some bad news about cyber attacks. They've again, and we've been following this data for now 5 years, and every year it seems as if this year is worse than the previous quarter or previous year. And cyber attacks are still, unfortunately, on the increase by 30% in Q2 2024 compared to just a year ago. 82% of all breaches are related to human error. This is the social engineering side, either stealing credentials, phishing, etc. 34% of organizations lack any client cybersecurity skills. $2.2 million saved when companies are using security AI prevention. And what that means is because the average breach is around $4.8 million or so, and this is average, small, medium, and large, by firms investing into software and technologies and methodologies and training and adopting a lot of these principles, you're actually saving money in the long run if you were potentially hit by cyber attack. Globally, unfortunately, this has become a $23 trillion annual problem by 2027. And what we're seeing on the street is there's extortion methodologies, cyber attacks are taking organizations down, possibly extorting your data or encrypting your data that's causing pain, not to mention the distraction that your firm now has to focus on versus taking care of your customers. So this is definitely a growing problem, and you're in the right place attending this webinar today to hopefully learn more about security and where you should go as a firm. Accounting firms are the primary target, one, because you have a lot of financially sensitive data. Whether you're serving private, public, et cetera, companies, the data you're storing about companies is very useful, and the attackers know this. Critical deadlines and high stakes, especially this time of the year. Accountants are working long hours, often 6+ days a week. And the brain is draining, if you will, on the amount of workload. So being a critical thinker on every email that's coming in and out of your mailbox is becoming much more difficult. It's going to slow you down. And targeting high-profile individuals like partners are a key. And it's not always directly the partner themselves, but maybe somebody that's related to the partner. That is something that's also an ongoing threat, is especially if they find a target that's very attractive to an attacker, they may go after somebody that's related or in a relationship with that person. Firm size doesn't matter. It just changes the ransom amount, if you will. We're seeing this if you're an accounting firm, period, you potentially have a larger target focusing on you. 30% of all cyber attacks are focused on small businesses because they lack the budget and security measures to prevent a potential cyber attack. We know that from seeing the data on the streets. The threats are evolving, but a lot of them are the same. Malware, denial of service attacks, phishing, spoofing, identity-based attacks, code injection attacks, supply chain attacks, social engineering, inside threats, DNS tunneling, Internet of Things-based attacks, and AI powered. And there's a lot of types of attacks. Basically, the bottom line, though, is we really want our people to operate in a zero trust mindset, meaning assume until you've proven otherwise that with potentially the attachment or the link that has come in, if it looks suspicious or it looks off, really raise the threat level a little bit, and not necessarily call it a disaster and call the IT department, but if you have a question, ask questions. Better to do that, or just simply delete the email in question and call the individual that maybe is trying to send you something. Social engineering attacks are by far, we've already identified that 80+% of the attacks are related to human beings. People are the weakest link for many reasons. Target personal interests like getting to know you. If you're in an attack, they'll use your social engineering, whether it's Facebook or LinkedIn, to get information that you have already publicly put out there. And now they're going to use this information to more or less get you to trust them versus trying to establish a relationship, etc. Impersonating your coworkers, clients, vendors, family, etc. is also a very common method used. Hackers are taking advantage of targeted persons based on their online profiles. And this is very common. This is well known, especially in the security industry. Everybody's putting their kids out there, where they're hanging out at, their favorite places, their favorite teams, their favorite hobbies. All that is on their online profiles if you're answering that information. And targeting people that are really trying to focus on you or your organization are going to use that information to get closer to you. 98% of cyber attacks rely on social engineering at one level or another. Technology can only do so much. Gen AI threats are on the rise too. Now, we've all been hearing about AI and what it's going to do potentially to our industry, but also the bad guys and gals are using these technologies to come after you and your organization. Maybe they might be establishing influence operations. Threat actors use AI-generated images and cyber attack, leveraging social media, using live deepfake, and I'm sure a lot of us heard about this, deepfake videos and audio to pose as an executive or a decision maker to get something going. This is on the rise big time, sending millions of emails out every day. Compelling AI-generated images increase engagement in phishing campaigns. So what we're seeing, though, we're using the bad people, unfortunately, to use these more advanced technologies and the efficiencies of these technologies than to try to go after the market as a whole. Even more of a reason why we all need to operate at almost a zero trust mindset. AI is a service. Threat actors are collaborating in underground forums to ways to use AI using personalized AI chatbots designed to create malicious programs. So this is scary stuff. It's on the rise. It's good to be aware of it, and even more of a reason why education and adopting tools and technologies and methodologies is a priority. And we're going to get into that a little bit more. So how can you manage your data security and your compliance? Well, there are some new rules that have come out, especially in the last 3-4 years, as FTC has come in and play and has now some rules that all accounting firms that are practicing and providing tax services for third parties, pretty much everybody on this line, whether you're one employee or 5,000 employees, are going to be applicable to the following safeguards, unless otherwise mentioned. Designating a security coordinator. If you have over 5,000 customers, you also have to conduct a risk assessment, implement information safeguards, regular test and monitor these safeguards, pen testing if you have over 5,000 customers on an annual basis, manage third-party vendors. And this is, a lot of firms forget about the third-party vendors. They look inside their shop, they're thinking about their servers, their assets, the applications are installed locally. But what about your vendors? What are they doing about security? Do you have two-factor enabled with them? Are they following some, if not all, of the compliances that you are being they're under? Employee education, having a regular employee education program. Incident response plan if you have over 5,000 customers, security coordinator, again, if you have over 5,000 customers. And then new this year, which went into effect in May of 2024, if you have a breach of any type and it affects more than, and this is the correct 500 consumers, whatever consumer means, whether it's a company or a individual, I will let you work with your attorney on the interpretation of that. But this is from the actual report. But if you have an incident that affects or at least 500 consumers, you must notify the FTC in writing. And that went into effect of May of 2024. So something new that it was announced last year in November, but it went into effect this year. So something to be aware of. What about a WISP? You'd be surprised on how many firms we talk to that don't have a WISP in play. And there are a lot of great templates out there that help get you. What I've been told by the experts in the industry is keep it simple and keep it focused, not try to be over elaborative, but that's just what I heard. Take that with a grain of salt. Include the names of information security program managers. The bottom line is that federal and many state laws require tax preparers, PTIN holders, to have a written information security plan, aka WISP. Identifying all the risks, where your data is. Where's customer information? Is it in the cloud? Is it on the server down the street, down the hall? Or is it stored somewhere else, including the backup of data and mobile devices? Where is all your data residing? Or where could it possibly reside, including email and mobile devices. Evaluate risks of current safety measures, design programs to protect your data. First, you have to identify where the data is, and then putting systems in place to protect the data. And I'll give you some insight. There isn't one silver bullet out there, if you will, that will just automatically protect all of your data. It's a combination thereof of many different methodologies and technologies, both software and hardware and human related, they're going to ultimately protect your data. Push the data protection program and put the data protection program in place and regular monitor and test. And IT changes quite a bit. So as the year goes by, as new patches and updates and upgrades come in with these applications, things are going to adjust, and you're going to therefore have to know what these changes are so you can adjust your plan. And that's why having a great change management program in place with your IT department is key. Just documenting the changes, therefore you know and understand where the potential impact of that change is going to do to your environment.
Hey, I'm going to cut in here, Chris, real quickly, because we want to do our second polling question. So our second question is, are you FTC compliant? And the options are, yes, we're all set. Almost, we're working on it. No, we need help. Or I'm not sure. So go ahead and answer the one that is most appropriate to you and click submit. And we'll take a look at these results as they're coming in. And so far it looks like we've got a really compliant audience. Looks like around a third, yes, we're all set. Around a third, we're working on it. And about a quarter are saying they're not sure. So it's a good spread, but very few are saying we need help. So that's a good sign.
Thank you, Gail. And
Okay.
I think in our download section, I think we have lots of templates and the information that may help you if you're still working on this information and gathering it.
Perfect. Thank you.
Take stock in your IT assets and knowing your environment and knowing your assets and where they are and where the data potentially could be is key these days. Knowing your infrastructure, whether it's a LAN, WAN, or guest network, documenting and understanding this. And this also identifies potential security risks, especially when you start talking about external people coming into your office using your Wi-Fi. Are they on a guest Wi-Fi? Are they on your production Wi-Fi? And there's an old saying in IT security, there's nothing convenient about security. So you're going to lose some of these conveniences like, merging the guest and LAN network together. All computers and hardware, including PCs, laptops, and mobile devices. This is a key one. A lot of firms forget about mobile devices. If you're allowing your staff to download their email, and I imagine they have attachments like Word documents and Excel documents and PDFs, that potentially has data on that device. So now that is in scope for you to understand where data is residing potentially. Printers, file servers, and hard drives. And all these things are part of your IT platform. And all these systems have little computers in them. So they potentially need to be updated, managed, maintained, looking for security holes, etc. Where's the data and where are the applications? What software do you use and how do you use it? Is it in the cloud or is it on premise or is it on somebody's laptop down the hall? Understanding your risks and understanding where data and applications are is the first step. And then how do you come back and harden these assets? Where is your data stored is by far the number one thing that needs to be documented. Users document the names, usernames, etc., and note the level of access. And if I can add something there too, users is sharing usernames and passwords with each other is absolutely against many, many different compliances, not to mention cybersecurity best practices. And having two-factor for all these accounts, doesn't matter if they're brand new or they're the CEO of the company, two-factor for everybody at every level, for every system they're accessing is key. Do you have a Gen AI policy? And this is, again, I apologize for the many forms of paperwork. You've got FTC, you've got WISP, not to mention your cybersecurity insurance plan questionnaire. Now you have a Gen AI policy. Lots of paperwork. I apologize, but this is where the industry is going. To scope to who it applies to, the tools approved, and understanding how to use AI and where that you're going to fold in AI to your organization. And then where's that data going to reside and go? For example, if you use a public AI tool, technology online, and you upload, let's say, a financial spreadsheet that may be client-specific or client related, are you potentially putting public or private data out on the public AI platform? So these are important questions to be asking your vendors as you're choosing to look into AI and how it can improve your business and how it can help your organization be more efficient. Understanding where the data is and where is it going and who also has access to that data are key questions. And please, by all means, don't listen to the salespeople. Really dig into the audits. If for example, if the firm you're working with has a SOC 2 Type 2 audit, that's something to feel better about. Then you're going to be fully documenting the whole experience and what they're doing with your data. Having guidelines and restrictions for acceptable use and how you're using it. What's the enforcement policy you have in place to protect the organization? Your data security, where's the data being collected, where is it being stored, and where else could it possibly live? Again, really look at the data, not just what somebody says. Oh, it's 100% in the U.S. and it's down the street. We know exactly where it is. Well, please qualify that and trust but verify. Training and awareness for your staff. They're going to start hearing more and more. It seems like everything is AI. It reminds me of the Y2K days where everything is Y2K and now everything's AI. That's the buzzword going on in the industry. But we're also learning is not some of these tools are not AI at all, and two, they're not as secure as potentially you would want them to be. Transparency is key, and understanding which vendor you're working with and how they're using the data and where the data is living is a key, and the data it collects. And review all AI generated information for accuracy on an ongoing basis. Again, because these AI tools and technologies are evolving quickly. A lot of firms are investing heavily, so the game is changing on a regular basis. So what it might be secure a year ago, maybe that vendor you're now working with has moved their data center to a different country and has changed the whole ecosystem for you and how you're using those systems. So just ask a lot of questions and really learn as much as you can about the data and where it is. Information safeguards, we highly recommend, and this is a lot of these compliances also overlap into your cybersecurity plan and your cybersecurity insurance plan. So what you're going to see is there's a lot of overlap here. But what I will tell you, these are bare bone, what I would consider recommendations. Implement and review your access controls. Who has access to what? What level of access do they have? Are they admins? Are they local admins? Are they global admins? Do they have access to too much data? In the IT world, less is more. Knowing what you have and where it is and where you have it, encrypting your data at rest and in transit, that's a mandatory these days, especially for FTC compliance. Doesn't matter how small or large your firm is, encrypting data at rest and in transit is key and is a requirement. Evaluate third-party app security. Again, trust but verify. Look at the third-party audits and verify that they are doing what they say they're doing. Implement multi-factor authentication, also known as 2FA or two-factor authentication, for everyone accessing your data in any system. And I recommend 2FA for everything. Doesn't matter if it's logging into your corporate network. I recommend 2FA for your Facebook, your LinkedIn profile. Everything you use these days should be 2FA, because what will happen is maybe your Apple account is not 2FA. They will get into that account one way or the other, and then use that information to then leapboard to the next level to get into your corporate network. Attackers it's never one-stop shopping. Usually they're hitting 2-3 places by the time they get to their destination. Dispose of your customer data securely and properly and in writing and documented. Anticipate, evaluate changes to your IT network. And IT is changing all the time. We know that, being in the trenches. And so it's a constant cycle of reevaluating of what has changed since last quarter or last month. Maintain a log of authorized activity and monitor unauthorized access. And there are a lot of great tools out there tools that you can adopt that will do this automatically for you, so you don't have to do this manually. Maximize your security posture. We recommend adopting advanced threat protection, also known as ATP, cyber liability insurance. It's a way to shift your risks if you're not ready to spend a ton of money in IT security, but having a robust liability insurance plan that is hopefully being furnished and provided by a company that specializes in this. And also I want to add something to there. Have your cybersecurity attorney, not your general counsel, review your cyber liability insurance plan. Because there are a lot of T's and I's details. And again, unless you specialize in cyber insurance or special liability insurance and you're an attorney in that space, this is Greek for a lot of people. IT and cybersecurity and general counsels can be a large, difficult mile to overcome. Security training and testing for everyone. Train your staff. It's an all-hands effort to train them to become critical thinkers, protecting the firm. Nobody's coming into our house and trying to cause problems with the firm. And I highly recommend that mindset. So what is advanced threat protection? There are a lot of these new tools and technologies and a lot of acronyms, because IT loves acronyms. I apologize. One, I highly recommend, after you've already done the lockdown of your environment, you're doing two-factor for everything, you're patching every month, you've got a good backup solution in place, et cetera, then you're ready to go to the next level. And the next 2-3 line items are my recommendations. One, adopt an NGAV, also known as a next generation antivirus. These are the CrowdStrikes, and the SentinelOnes of the world, if you will. These are the more advanced, but they are expensive and are complicated to roll out. So you have to work with a company that knows and understands this technology, but it is the best defense mechanism you can put in place. Your traditional antivirus technology, unfortunately, is not applicable to the conversation anymore. It only stops known viruses. So this is where NGAVs come into place. The other, if you really want to go to the next level and really maximize your security posture, the next two line items is something I would recommend. Endpoint detection and response security tool, and also a managed detection and response company that helps manage security for you. What is this in plain English? These are often companies that are MSSPs, managed security service providers, that specialize in deploying these more advanced security tools. And they will more or less be a conduit of all your security systems, for example, your NGAV, feeding information into these technologies that then are going to use AI and human behavior to determine whether or not there's a threat. NGAVs will stop known viruses and often will stop unknown viruses. EDR and MDR really get into the behavior side of the equation. Highly recommend, and really that's the highest level of security you could put out there, is adopting an NGAV, EDR, and MDR across the board, whether you're in the cloud or on premise. That is the best practice of what we recommend. These tools will also give you endpoint telemetry data. If the cybersecurity experts will tell you that if you got hit by a cyber attack, the first question we should be asking is, where did it come from and how did it get in, so we can stop it from happening again? Because if it can happen once, it can happen again. So really understanding the endpoint telemetry data, which is often provided by NGAVs, is a key. Adopting as filtering. This is kind of security for DNS. So as you're surfing the internet or your staff are surfing the internet, hopefully going to help minimize some potential dangerous websites out there. For example, Cisco Umbrella has a great product out there that's relatively inexpensive, but can serve your entire firm very quickly. Implemented IPS, often done on the firewalls. This is usually additional license that's put on your firewalls to help prevent intrusions into your network. Utilize reputation-based threat prevention, and MFA at every level for everyone, for every application. Local workstations, two-factor on your mobile devices, two-factor into all your web-based applications and your applications is a must these days, and it's now a standard, not an option, in our opinion. Other ways to maximize your security posture is perform multiple backups on separate backup solutions of all your network. Why two? Because the attackers are going after your backups first. Before they launch their attack, before they let you know they're inside your network, they're going to be trying to find out, what are you using for your backups? Because they know once they launch the attack, you're going to probably go back to your backups and recover before the attack happened. And this is why they're trying to destroy your backups that hopefully are stored offline, separate from your network, and minimize the potential needing to pay the ransom. Encryption at rest and in transit of your data. We highly recommend least privilege model for all your user accounts. No more admins, no more local global admins. For example, if an employee can go in and install a product on one of your company-owned equipment, PCs or laptops, well, guess what? So can the bad people. They can also go in and install things on your laptops and your workstations. So we highly recommend removing these more elevated permissions away, using the IT department to track the changes and also test the changes, and also only put approved software on these computers. Patch third-party all vulnerabilities, and we highly recommend working with a company that has a patch management solution that's doing this automatically for you. I know we all want to tell our staff, can you please run Windows updates once a month? But people get busy, people forget, or maybe it's not their priority, and all it takes is one vulnerable machine and they can expose an entire network. Seek security counsel to verify strong security posture. And we highly recommend you work with an attorney that specializes in cybersecurity. This is a very complicated topic that has a lot of different pieces. It really, it takes a trained expert to help you, guide you. Maintain your disaster recovery plan. Hopefully your plan is printed on the old 3-ring binder on paper, not on your network, separated with your complete plan. It's now is the time to start thinking about what is your disaster recovery plan and how would you recover, including phone numbers, addresses, etc., and what the plan is while you're thinking clearly and while you're not thinking under pressure. Because if you're in a disaster situation, the adrenaline will be running, your network will be down, people can't work, the pressures are going to kick in. You're not going to have a chance to think clearly on what the next step is to recover. And adopt a zero trust model. Just assume it could potentially be dangerous until proven otherwise. Something you don't often hear your IT company talking about is insurance. Well, it's a problem because it's affecting clients too. Cyber insurance premiums have increased by 50+% from 22 to 23. Insurance premiums started to stabilize this year a little bit as the industry is maturing, but they're also asking a lot more questions and also removing themselves from being potentially exposed. They're getting smarter. Insurance companies have been hit pretty hard, starting in probably 2018 until now, and they're still getting hit. In fact, a lot of companies have reduced, or a lot of companies aren't even offering cyber liability anymore because they've been hit so hard. Carriers continue to reduce limits and exposure, often high deductibles or sharing the risk. Cyber insurance checklists have grown from 10 to 50+ questions. And remember, that document you're answering is a legal binding agreement. It is part of the contract that goes in with your carrier that is insuring your company. So if a question is maybe incorrectly answered, that could potentially void your entire claim. So it's very important that you're completely transparent. And if you don't know the answer to the question, get experts to help you or push back on the insurance vendor and get clarification. We filled out these questionnaires ourselves. They are gray. They're potentially confusing. So going back to the carrier and getting everything in writing on clarification of these questions, that way you thoroughly understand it and answering it to the best of your knowledge. Coverage is less negotiable, tighter controls and terms, and requiring, and this is really what, if you look at what the cyber liability companies are looking for, they're looking to make sure that you're following best practice, MFA, patching, least privilege model. Are you encrypting data at rest and transit? Do you have a lockout policy? Do you have a lot of these things in place? A lot of the things that FTC is addressing and also your WISP is addressing. A lot of these things are just cybersecurity best practices in general. And they're looking for you, and they will often verify that you're actually doing these things. They want to see demonstrations. Shift your risk, check your insurance policy, understand the terms of first person versus third person's insurance coverage. There's a big difference when it comes to the claim. Ransomware insurance, make sure you have it and really nailing the details. Is the insurance carrier going to pay the ransom up front, or are they going to reimburse you? What happens if the ransom is $5 million? Do you have $5 million in cash to upfront for the ransom? And then the insurance company we're seeing that on the road. We're seeing that on the street of companies that had a policy, but because they couldn't pay the ransom and the insurance carrier may or may not put the money up front, the companies are left in a very difficult situation. Don't assume, validate what's covered. Again, I would highly recommend you have that binder, that often very thick, very small print, many terminologies that a lot of us don't understand, the legal contract, if you will, the binding contract. Have an expert, a law firm that specializes in cybersecurity, and make sure you understand what you're covered, what's not. Have your attorney review and list a broker and understand cyber liability policies, and false safeguards could lead to denials of claims. Again, this comes back to the paperwork and being transparent. Are you two-factoring everything? Are you encrypting data at rest? Are you doing all the things that you said you were doing in the policy? And if you're not, and they are going to probably do a forensics, because that's often standard procedure of any claim, they're going to eventually find out that maybe one of these things were not in place. Over the last 12 months, 62% of all U.S. companies filed a cyber insurance claim, with 20% filing multiple claims within the same period. That gives you some insight of how bad the problem is. We heard of, for example, 4 or 5 firms that were hit during this last year's tax season, unfortunately. So this is, again, we're trying to put information out there to help you so you're ahead of this problem, not reacting. If you're hit, what do you do? Well, hopefully you have a disaster recovery plan, and you have a plan that's well thought out in getting your team together and really putting the steps together, and who you need to call, what needs to be done, and getting on that plan. But activating your DR plan is the first step, and that's going to hopefully lead you to success in getting out of this mess. Enlist the help of cybersecurity experts. If you're working with a carrier, insurance carrier, often they have a cybersecurity team. They have a 24/7 hotline that you can call and activate the carrier, and then they will help coach and guide and bring you along this path, including getting attorneys involved, et cetera, notices, et cetera. Contact your insurance carrier immediately. Sign the engagement letter immediately. Consult with your incident response team. Hopefully you have a team internally. Also, you'll have a team with your insurance carrier that will be managing, assessing the risk and what the next steps are, and engage in internal teams. In other words, don't try to do this on your own. This is not an IT problem. This is an all hands on deck business problem that everybody needs to participate, and everybody has a place for it. Whether it's somebody contacting your customers, letting them know what's going on, or you're working with your insurance carriers behind the scenes, or you are talking to your customers directly as a business owner operator and kind of smoothing things over. But you're not going to be able to do this on your own, and your whole team is going to be consumed by this for at least a couple of weeks while you're trying to put this back together. We have another question, Gail.
Okay, this is our third polling question. What's on your IT roadmap in 2024 to 2025? And this is a multiple choice question where you can select as many of these as apply to you. So the options are IT security holes, compliance needs, lack of business continuity, or disaster recovery. That's the first option. Aging infrastructure, equipment, etc. New office move, business acquisition or merger, on-premise today looking for a secure cloud solution, challenges with our current IT provider, evaluating other solutions, or something else. And just click all the options that apply to you, and then click submit when you're ready. And if you're not getting the ability to check multiple items, you can also enter them in the Ask a Question box, and we will record them there. So far it looks like the first answer, which was IT security holes, compliance needs, lack of business continuity, or disaster recovery, is getting the largest collection of responses, followed by aging infrastructure, which is interesting. Okay, so we'll leave that up for just a few more seconds so you can make sure you've read all those and check the ones that apply.
And Gail, yeah, I'm not surprised about IT security holes and compliance. It's an ever-evolving challenge that it's growing and evolving over time. So even a year ago, the security compliances were different than they are now. So,
All right.
All right, moving along to the next topic. Gail, are you ready for me to move on?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, and I've got about 7 minutes and about 9 slides to go, so I think we're going to be okay on time here. So protecting your endpoints, and this is really the attention to detail. We recommend, and I know it's not as convenient, wired connections, especially in densely populated areas, whether it's apartments or downtown. Using wired connections are always going to be one. They are going to be faster and more reliable. It's just the nature of the technology. But also, two, it's more secure. Especially if you're dealing with densely populated areas, wireless can pretty much majority, I would say majority with a quite, underlying, wireless networks can be attacked in one way or the other. There are some rare breeds of that, but wireless networks they're just due to the nature, are easily attackable. Once they're on your network, it's a different problem. Review and monitor all of your equipment. Doesn't matter how small, medium, or large, including the Internet of Things devices, smart things, Alexas, you name it. Those are computers, and they're on your network, and they're potential attack vector points. Run those updates on a regular basis and patch and reboot Windows devices, Mac devices, iPhones, Androids. If there's an available update, we highly recommend you get those patched as soon as practical, even in the middle of tax season. We've been patching all of our clients in the middle of tax season. It's just that important. It hasn't affected anything with proper testing and rolling things out, but it's a must these days. Only connect to private, known, trusted Wi-Fi networks. Enforce MFA on all access points on every device, every application, every website. Deploy NGV on every workstation. We highly recommend there. And lock down those admin rights. We still see a lot of people out there that when we first start working with them, that everybody's got local admin rights, especially the auditing side of the shop. They don't want to be inconvenienced by having to install something while they're at a client site. And I get that. But there are ways around that to still have a secure lockdown environment without having to give the keys to the kingdom away. This just have to be a little bit creative there, but it can be done. Internet of Things, I touched on it. These are the most vulnerable devices, often because there's not a lot of development and money put into them. For example, smart things and those little Philips Hue lights in your house, et cetera. Those are all little computers, and they need to be maintained and updated. And we're seeing and hearing that those are actually the most vulnerable devices. Every device provides an avenue to your network for a hacker, access to other cloud apps and role used in identity verification. And know how your data is being accessed and where it is being stored. Again, back to the initial steps of understanding where the threat is, where's the data, where are the assets, and how are we protecting them in all different ways, including internet and network. If you connect, the saying, if you connect it, protect it. We also highly recommend, and this is also part of cybersecurity best practices and insurance compliance and FTC, is enrolling your team into a cybersecurity training program. There are some great programs out there. They're very inexpensive. You know, for the average, let's say a company that's 30 to 50 employees, we're talking anywhere from $300 to $700 a year to roll out a cybersecurity training program. We know that employees are your best line of defense. It's the number one cause of infections. It's a human behavior that's happening. It's the tricking and spoofing of other people that are tricking your staff. And your staff are already working very long hours and are tired and maybe not questioning every email that comes to their inbox. It's difficult, but we can train them up to be critical thinkers. Develop and implement an ongoing plan. Training is not a one and done thing. Training is an ongoing effort. And that's why we recommend adopting a yearly subscription where your staff are at least 30 minutes a month engaged in some level of cybersecurity and testing. Educate, remind, and reinforce, test, qualify your training, and inspire ownership. This is not the IT department's problem. This is not the owner's problem. This is an all-hands effort. And really bring your team along for the ownership of this problem. If after all, we are talking about protecting the firm against a cyber attack that will ultimately affect everybody's job at the firm, if everybody's not participating in the process. So really try to bring your team along and get everybody on board. Again, it's not the IT person's job necessarily by themselves. They need your help, and especially need help and support from the higher ups. They're making decisions and making it a part of your culture versus this is the IT department's problem. You may be considering that this may be all too much for you to think about, and you want to be focused on what you do best versus try to become an IT security expert. Well, there are experts out there that could potentially help. There are companies that specialize either in security or a cloud provider out in the market that should be doing all these things. These firms will often help management of your risks, access more security solutions. They'll have the experience. They will have enlisted cybersecurity experts either on staff or working with their group, guide to enforce involvement security best practices. You get time back to focus on your customers, and hopefully you'll have peace of mind knowing that you have the experts. The same reason why I outsource my accounting. And knowing you have peace of mind that I've got the experts on the problem and they're doing their best to make sure that they're minimizing the risk to my firm. And that's what I think we all want at the end of the day. What about budgets? Well, top firms are investing 5 to 6% of revenues annually on technology. That is per a quote from Mark Stout over at Boomer Consulting. Firms are investing 5 to 10% of their annual IT budget on security. And I really highly endorse this and say that I've talked to firms where they're in the middle of upgrading a major software product, but they had zero investment in their IT security. And we challenged them and said, hey, we really need to beef up the security before we do the other piece, because if you don't have a security robust plan in place, you may not have a company to deploy that new software you want to deploy to. So I really highly recommend the budget dollars, fix the IT security challenges first, and then move on to bigger goals of the organization. This trend is upwards, as a cyber life insurance providers almost always require advanced threat protection. Many firms wait until after the fact, and now they have a security incident on their hands. And I guarantee the security incident will cost you a lot more than the investment into this software. The potential return investment is significant for firms who want to mitigate risk and help prevent loss of revenue. Not to mention just the heartache of going through a cyber attack and the distraction of your firm. This will consume, if a cyber attack does happen to your firm, I promise you, this will consume the entire organization until you are past this. So meanwhile, tax returns and financials, et cetera, may be put on hold until you get past the cyber attack. And that's going to be lost revenues and possible loss of a client. So this is why we try to get ahead of this problem before we get behind it. So on that note, I got a pretty good time, 1:50 here Eastern Standard Time. We do have a leave behind here. These are some questions that you can be asking your provider. And I highly recommend you don't just listen to the salesperson, talk to references, look at the SOC reports, look at the reputation, et cetera, and really ask some critical thinking. It's not always about just hosting the applications. There's much more involved with security and making sure that the firm you're going to work with has security at the top of the list. And it really needs to be these days, especially when the problem is growing as large as it is, and also just because of who accounting firms are and what they do for our clients out there on the road. So adopting these methodologies and teaming up with the right provider can really help mitigate your risk as a whole. And I have one last poll question for you. Gail.
Okay, this is our fourth poll question. Would you like someone to reach out to you with more information about Cetrom? And your answer options are yes, no, or maybe. We do have a bunch of questions coming in that Chris is going to address. But first, I just want to remind you, while we're going through the Q&A, remember the slides are available for download, and there's a bunch of other resources that Cetrom has provided you with, all in the event resources box on your screen. So take a moment to start downloading that stuff while we go through Q&A. Back to you, Chris.
Thank you, Gail. Emily, do we have any questions we should be going over?
All right, Marianne. Yes, we've gotten a number of questions here throughout the presentation that we wanted to hit on. Our first one here, I have UltraTax running locally. With every storm in Houston, we seem to lose power for a week. We also lose at least a week of productivity. What would you do to help us solve this issue?
Put that software, that key software, in a data center environment. Preferably a cloud vendor that knows how to do that for you, that then can put that software accessible from anywhere in the world, that has the diesel generators, the battery backups, the redundancy and power and internet, et cetera. And then, if you do lose power in the region, you can move your staff around. That we've helped clients with disaster recovery plans, including but not limited to the entire area has lost power. How does my firm keep moving forward even when power is lost to the office? So simply by going out of the region, having staff log in from remotely anywhere that has internet access could be a quick fix for that. And that's just shooting from the hip.
Thank you, Chris. Let's see, we have another question here. Some of our partners are resistant to change. We still maintain some of our servers in-house and are not doing everything we should be doing for security. How would you convince them to outsource IT?
Well, it just kind of goes back to some of the data. I'm a data guy, and the data really drives the decision. And the data shows that this is a threat that is growing massively. I mean, I'm sure all of us would love if our business was growing 30% every year. Well, cyber threats are growing 30% plus, and it really, to protect the organization, security should be number one. And then maybe just looking at it, if it's too much for them to digest, and maybe looking at an outside firm that specializes in that way, they don't have to try to do this all on their own.
Awesome. And we do have another question here. We actually have a blog post related to this, which I can certainly send out to the team, but this is one in specific. Do you recommend using password storage software?
We do. Finding the right company, because the best practice is having a unique password for every site. And we know that folks, it's too many different passwords. So where are you going to store those passwords? If you think you're going to memorize every unique password for every site, that's a hard task to follow. So adopting a password manager, a reputable one that works both in the PC environment and on your personal devices. I use one that is connected to both, and that way I get the benefit of working on my PC and in the cloud, but also on my mobile device, and I have all my passwords stored in one centralized area. But I do recommend having a unique password for every site, and I also highly recommend having two-factor for every account that I have, and really push your vendors to, if they're not there yet, to push them to become compliant with two-factor.
Thank you, Chris. And I think that's all the questions at the moment. We've been answering them pretty frequently here throughout the webinar.
Well, thank you, everyone. I'm going to turn it back over to Gail here, but I would just want to say thank you very much for taking the time to hear, learn more about cybersecurity. And hopefully this will put you on the right track to getting compliant. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to call us. We do have our contact information up here. We're here to help the industry. Gail?
All right. Thanks, Chris, for an excellent and really informative presentation. We hope all of you have enjoyed this webinar, and we want to thank you for spending your time with us today. And we want to thank Cetrom for making this event possible and for enabling us to offer a free CPE credit to each attendee. As a reminder, you'll receive a link in your email with your CPE certificate later this afternoon. It'll be an email from CPA Practice Advisor, so look for that. If you have any questions about CPE, you can contact me directly at gperry, G-P-E-R-R-Y, at cpapracticeadvisor.com. Also, if there are others with you who are watching the event on the same computer who need CPE credit, you can send me their name and email address, and we'll take care of issuing certificates to them. Again, that's gperry at cpapracticeadvisor.com. In just a moment, you'll be presented with a post-event evaluation form on your screen. We hope you'll take a moment to answer a few questions so we can continue to improve our webinar series. And I think that's it. Our audio is going to end now. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.